Yeah.
because you just hit me with something because I seen the picture with you and some wrestlers too. So I want to ask about that. But
Oh, I got a
this
good one.
person, there's a show that we used to watch back in the days, right?
Mhm.
It's about junior high school. It's called Degrassi Junior High. I loved that show as a kid, right? But then when I got older, I seen they did another Degrassi Junior High, and there was this light-skinned character on there. And his name is Drake. Yo, real talk with Star Scorpio. This is crazy. My guest here, Kwame Damon Mason. We were doing part one and we ran out of time, so we had to do a part two. In part one, we covered his childhood. We talked about growing up in the Parkwoods. He told some amazing stories. Talked about security at Canada's Wonderland, meeting all the people. We talked about his time at PHAT TV. And we ended off at his time at Kiss 92.5. And I was dropping some names because I wanted to hear some stories. He told me about the Eminem story. The Biggie story was hot. That was in our neighborhood, though. Um, Running into Aguilera, all these people. But there's a couple names. He told me the Beyonce story too. There's a couple names I wanted to ask you before we move on.
Yeah.
Because tell me if this is true. Did you do time at Flow 93.5 as well?
Yeah, I was one of the first crew.
Yes. All right. So we're gonna get to that. But I have some names here. So do you remember the time and do you have any stories of when you met Fat Joe? Because I seen that picture with Fat Joe, legend.
Yeah, I mean, I ran into Fat Joe, Joey Crack. It was nothing really big. I was at the very first BET Awards in Vegas, and I met a lot of people there. Fat was one of them. I think that experience, that first BET Awards, was really dope. I'm that's when I remember I was in, like, there's a radio room,
Yeah.
so you have like a makeshift radio station. Everybody had one. Um, every radio station from the States, I had one. So what it meant was, like, I could broadcast at any time. So if
Mm.
someone came in, I just okay, I would hit up, be like, yo, so and so's in. They'd patch me in. I'd be like, all right, live and direct from Vegas, BT Awards. I got Usher. And I remember I was in, I don't know why. Oh yeah, because it was like, I was trying to do stuff for the morning show. So Vegas being like 3 hours ahead, I can't remember the time zone thing, but I was there early in the morning. I was probably there like 3 in the morning.
Mm.
Usher comes dancing in. He's just bopping around, dancing and stuff like that. I'm like, man, you up really early. He's like, yo, man, gotta work, gotta work. So that was cool. But yeah, Joey Crack, I just kind of, in passing, never really got to chop it up with him as much. I wish I did. Like, he seems like a very interesting person, but yeah, I don't have any crazy stories about him.
Mm. Did you ever become so close to these rap artists where you had their phone numbers? I know you said you had Busta Rhymes pager, I believe, but did you ever have their phone numbers where you could just hit them up when you were in the area?
Um, I mean, I'd exchange. I remember this was. I remember when I was doing Fat TV.
Mm.
Um, if you ever look at my IG, I think the page, I think it's up there on my Quamster IG. The Brat came,
I
and
saw
I had
that picture.
a huge crush on. I would like, man, I had a crush on the Brat,
Yeah.
and everybody was like, "Nah, bro, she's like," I'm like, it's the Brat.
Yeah.
So her and I kicked it. So if you look at the picture, I'm like leaned back,
Yeah.
like basically on her lap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you ever seen that interview, oh, we were high. I mean, we smoked a fat blunt. And I never used to smoke before interviews.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that'll throw you off. I smoked. She wants to like, yo, we smoking? And I was like, yeah. And we smoked. And I was just wicked. And you could see it on camera. Because I remember my friends would call me and be like, yo, bro, you high? I'm like, yep. And she so long story short, she went on Electric Circus right after.
Mm.
And after I gotta find it, but right after, she was like, I'm sending this one out to my man Kwame. And my phone blew. Everybody's like, yo, why is the brat shouting you out like this? And long story short, she gave me her number, but I mean, I might have most of the times back then was all like beepers. So we talked a couple of times. Homeboy from NSYNC, Kirkpatrick, me and him talked a little bit. But Buster, talked to him a little bit. But you know what? My thing was I just never wanted to bother these people. You know what I mean? So if I had to connect, like I mean, I know I have Redman's number here still. I just, you know what I mean? Like, what am I calling you about? Hey man, how you doing? Like, you know what I mean? What am I calling you for?
Yeah.
I don't know like that. Yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm sure if I saw them or saw somebody, they might have been like, yo, why'd you hit me up? But no, I never did that. I just never did that, you know.
Yeah, what about for projects though? So I know what you're saying for the personal stuff, but what about if they were coming to the city and you were plugged in, so they wanted to?
Yeah, and so if we had like when I was doing PHAT TV, back then I would, I'd page Buster or his manager and be like, yo, let me know what's what. Khalees, when I was working at Kiss 92, her and I were really cool. So we'd always talk. Like many times she'd come back in the city, she'd hit me up, me, her, and not Pharrell, but Malice. Me, her, and Malice would not Pharrell. Sorry. What's homeboy's name? From Clips, the two, there's Malice and like you could tell I don't really listen to really that much.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, his brother would we go meet up and just go out to the clubs or something like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, but project wise, not because everything we just had set up. I just never did it. I just never did that, and that's probably one of the things that I kind of like. Wish I had did better of is connecting with them because back then too. You know what I mean? Like if you're a dude and you're texting dudes and you know what I mean, you're beeping dudes, like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's weird. So unless they wanted something like, hey, link me up with, I'm trying to go to this club or I would just, I didn't want to be known as that guy that's just like, so I just never knew the proper protocol to stay in touch with celebrities like that. So I just never did it.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, I remember like Spinderella, like I just never would, you know what I mean? My brother thought it was stupid. My brother's like, yo, she trying to holler at you. I'm like, nah, come on.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Yo, the history is crazy. But tell me something. You said something about Caravana back in the day when you're telling your Mishi story. But when Caravana came around, tell me something, because people always thought that Canada was soft. They like Toronto is different, I believe, from a lot of different provinces, Ontario, but specifically Toronto, and you got Montreal. But when the artists came here, were their eyes opened since you were in the know, where they were like, wow, I didn't know Toronto was like this?
It's interesting because like, I mean, obviously I don't go to Caravana anymore, but growing up, I always was at Caravana. As I know myself, I know Caravana. Like, you know what I mean? My parents, I went there as a shorty, have to catch up behind my parents, to being a teenager and let us go on our own, to an adult, just doing the thing, working it, having our own float. Like when I was at Kiss 92, we had a float. It was like me, DJ Short, Eve, and Big Ticket from
from BT.
The basement. Yeah, we had a float. And my cousin Jeff, who I was telling you about, lived in Queens on 193rd and Linden Boulevard. He would always come, and I opened his eyes to it, and then he would open up his friends' eyes, and he would tell like Q-Tip and all those guys about Caravana, and you know, I think what really the time when American, like, because for Americans used to be your relatives would come down, like everybody's relatives from the States would come in.
Right.
Artists didn't start really coming in until about 96. I remember that because Puffy came.
Right.
Puffy brought, this is right after Big died. He brought the whole Bad Boy family there. And I remember we called it Puffabana.
Yeah.
Because he had a part, it was just lights out. But in my opinion, that's when we spoiled it for ourselves. Because now everybody now is really, really coming down artist-wise. So now parties which were already $20 expensive now bump up to $70.
Yeah.
And it just got dumb, and it just became like almost like their thing. And then promoters that we knew were just placating to the American artists and what they, and it just went, to me, it just kind of was like, but once they caught a hold of Caravana, holy smokes, then you'd see everybody out here.
Whoa. Yo, and you lived it too, man. You lived it, boy. There's a couple other artists I wanna ask you about, but let me just switch it to another genre of music because we all grew up with dancehall. So did you ever meet some of the artists that we love to hear, like the Beanies, the Bounties, Spragga Benz, anyone, because they love Canada too, Toronto?
Yeah. Beanie Man came by the station, we kicked it. Who else? Beanie Man, Sean Paul. But it's interesting. It's from the reggae world. I never really got plugged into that as much as I thought. Now when I look back, I'm like, how's that you never got plugged in there?
Yeah.
It just, you know what I mean? It was just, I was such a hip hop head. That was my main focus. Mishy was more onto the reggae side, you know what I mean? But
yeah, it makes sense.
I never really got heavy into the dance hall side and the dance hall scene, you know what I mean? I just give me hip hop all day. That was my thing.
That was your thing. Yeah. So now going back, two more names I want to ask you about because you were talking about the start of hip hop, back in the late 80s, early 90s and stuff. So I got to drop this name because I seen a picture of you and I believe Missy Me was in it too with Chuck D.
Yeah.
I was in meeting at member of Public Enemy knowing that, we listened to them growing up and then you met him at that time too. How was that?
Yeah, that was probably, I would say, out of everybody I met, that's the one you have to pay the most respect to, and you're just in awe because it was, it was Chucky D. And like I said, when I was working with Mishy was good with Chuck, and she was actually signed to one of his imprint labels at the time, and they took us. That's the first time I got to see all of Canada. It was with Chuck D and Flavor and Professor Griff and the S1Ws. We toured Canada. We started in Vancouver, ended in Toronto, but Vancouver all the way to Montreal, then back to Toronto. That was our last stop. And then after that, we went to Dominica. I got to see Dominica for the first time, opening up for Chuck D and them. And that was amazing. Again, as another time, I always, man, anytime I was in Chuck's presence, I just shut up and I would just listen.
Wow.
I just want to be around him. You know what I mean? Flavor Flav, being around Flavor was just jokes. It's just, I remember being with Flav and, Flavor Flav could play like 20 different instruments. Did you know that?
What? No.
Yeah, piano, guitar, anything. Like he's that dude. Like he's an accomplished musician. And he was fun to he was really fun to be around, and learning martial arts from the S1Ws. Like we'd be like at the hotel and they'd be showing me like high kicks and all this stuff, and Professor Griff just dropping
The
science.
knowledge. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, and I just remember being in Dominica, hot night, poolside, and just sitting with Public Enemy going, holy crap, man. That's pretty cool. That's Chucky D right there. And I remember when we got off tour, man, I was still living in Roywood, and we got off the airport, the hotel, or we got off the plane, and it was like 1 a.m. Miss Chuck D drove me home, and I was so what was upsetting was No Man's Den was out. They were usually at Roywood and like by Masonette's Man's Den would be outside, hanging out in front doing hustling and stuff like that. Nobody was outside. My dad answered the door, and I just remember this is what I loved about Chuck D. Like they dropped me off, and him and my dad are just talking for like half an hour outside, just chopping it up, and you know what I mean. I was like, yeah, that's a really cool. I haven't since then. I have not seen Chuck D. I actually saw him once at the BET Awards, but man, there's a couple of people that I'm hoping that one day I'll get to just reconnect with them, like and sit down and just talk. Like I'd love to just reconnect with like Redman on a just a sit down level, and I mean I'd love to see Jay-Z again, but I know we wouldn't reconnect, or there's no reconnecting. It would just be like, I would just be like, yo, I appreciate where you are right now, and you were the first time I ever interviewed a celebrity or a rapper or anything was you, and and that's something that no one could take away from me. You know what I mean? But yeah, Chuck D, boy, that was something special.
Oh, D, thanks for sharing that story. Um, just talking to you, I'm like your brain, like you remember everything. You remember the experiences, and I feel like you need to write a book or something. And it's just
Always say
crazy.
that. People
You,
always say that. I thought of writing. What I thought of writing was like, okay, so there's the thing about writing a book. You have to be honest, and there's skeletons in the closet. I don't know if I want to
yeah.
talk about, but I always thought about doing a book, which would be like, I'd put the picture and I would tell the story behind the picture.
Oh, yeah.
Because one thing that especially back then, I never did was take a picture if I just rolled up into a celebrity. I wouldn't, hey, can I get a pic?
Yeah.
I had to been, I'm working, I was doing something. After we're done, take a pic. So all those pictures you see, there's some association. It's not like I just ran into them in the street. I mean, Bishop Don Juan, I ran into him in the street, so I took a picture with him. But anybody it's the Bishop Don Juan, he got 2 hoes with him, and he's in his pimp outfit. I'm like, yo, I gotta take a picture with you.
Yeah.
Actually, one of his hoes took a picture. So I had, I mean, like that. But so yeah, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah.
No, but yeah, well, I want to hear that because, when we grew up, we didn't have IG, we didn't have Facebook and all these things, Twitter.
Yeah.
And I see people documenting things on these platforms. And it's like, we have memories in our head. And that's why when I'm hearing from you, it's beautiful to hear stories firsthand from someone. Because a lot of people right now, they can tell a story if you just scroll through their IG. But thinking back at it, do you feel like a way thinking like, oh man, I wish we had those kind of platforms at that time? Or are you happy with how things are?
Not at all. I don't even want these platforms now. I don't even want them now. I don't want them.
Yeah.
Even like, like I love discovery. That's why I like documentaries, because you discover something, you learn something. Like the internet, I don't really like, man, if they said, hey, take something away from human beings, I'd be like, yeah, take away that internet. Take that away from everybody. You know, I grew up in the times when you had pen pals, when you wrote letters,
Yeah.
and you know you got a letter. I'm from the generation that you put your your film in your camera carefully. You set your camera, you took your picture, you finished your roll, you went to the store, you dropped it off. A couple of days later, you got it back, and you're excited because you're like, did it turn out? Did it turn out?
Mm.
I like that. I don't like that I could just pick up my phone, bop,
Yeah.
bop. I don't like that. I mean, I'll do it. It is what it is. You know, you can't take away what's already here. This is where we're at. But if you ask me, I'm like, no, I don't want that. Even like, no disrespect, but even like podcasts and camera videos on phone, I'm like, you got to study the craft, man. You're very good at what you're doing. I'll give you that. I'll give
Mm.
you the fact that, like, you know, when I listened to it and I was listening to some other stuff you do, I'm like, you could have been a radio broadcaster, in the sense that when you do your interviews and stuff like that, you conduct yourself like how I would. But I
Mm.
listen to a lot of I've heard a lot of people's podcasts, and I've been on a lot of people's just makes it pod. I'm like, listen, I'm just like, what is,
Yeah.
and it's like, even like, make it like, to me, I feel like, and this is why I never became an actor,
Mm.
because I was not disciplined enough to study the craft. Nowadays, you could just do some goofy shit on the internet, and then somebody sees you, and because you've got all these followers, oh, let me give you a role in the movie. I'm like, what? How does
Yeah.
that? How does that trans? You know, it is what it is, but you know, so yeah, I don't. There's no discovery right now. Everything is right there, and I mean, you know, think about it, especially for young boys.
Mm.
No discovery. You know, I come from the era that you go through the forest, you might find a Playboy. What? Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's just like bling, 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 and there it is.
Mm.
And they see the most extreme ish. You know what I mean? These
Mm.
boys, these young boys don't got no discovery. I'm from the days of, you know, you would discover, you were like, you know, I'm from first base, second base, third base, home plate.
Yeah.
That's my world.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
like, pip. And to me, I'm like, that's too bad. To me,
Mm.
that's too bad. I think you got to work your way up to something. You can't just have it right there. And I think this right now, everything is right there for it. You want it, boom. You want to make a movie? Boom. Get Final Cut. You got your phone. Go to boom, and put it up there. And it could be the worst thing in the world, but because it does something that made some, now you got 50 million followers. And then a man that really has been grinding and studying and can't even get 100 followers. That to me is an injustice. So,
Wow. I needed to hear that, man. First of all,
so
thank you
yeah.
for
So
the
I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna keep doing this podcast thing, respect the craft, man.
mm.
Respect the craft, and just do it to the best of your ability. And you know, and you got to remember, like, you might be doing something way better than other people, but they're gonna get that. They're gonna get more listeners and more followers than you. So you got to
Wow.
ask what you're doing it for. And if you're okay with what you got, then just keep doing it because it's out of the love. And that's why I always try to tell, like, anything that I've done, you know, has always been for the love first, and I feel like the money would come later. When
Mm.
I went into PHAT TV,
Mm.
2 years, I made $500.
Wow.
$500. I don't know how much my boss made, and you know, he used to always tell me he ain't make no money and this and that. I know I made $500, and the only reason why I made $500 is because I put on an event at Canada's Wonderland, and I think it was Polo or somebody sponsored it,
Mm.
and he cut me a check for $500. But I did it out of the love, because I knew if I did that, one day it would pay off. When I worked at Kiss 92, I worked once a week. I might have made, I think it was like about $1,000 I made every 2 weeks.
Mm.
Who's living off $1,000, man? You know what I mean? I went on tour with Mishi, Public Enemy. I ain't get no money. I ain't made no money. You know what I'm saying? But I did it because I knew And when I made my first film, which I'm sure we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
I went bankrupt. I lost. I lost it. I sold my condominium. I used to smoke. I used to be a smoker, cigarettes.
Mhm.
I couldn't. I stopped smoking because of making that documentary because I couldn't afford a $10 pack of cigarettes.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yo, we're gonna get to that. I like where this is going. Save that
Do it for
conversation.
love.
Wow, this is amazing. First of all, thank you for the compliment. And yeah, I love doing this podcast because I want to share stories of others and I build that connection with people. And I like to reconnect with some of my old school people. Like you're not the first one from the old school. And we get into conversations where some people are like, who's this? Who's that? But
Yeah,
it's like I'm doing it for me too. But
yeah,
people need to hear this word. And it I like what you said too about it's about the craft too. It's not just putting because I was in comedy, right?
mm-hmm.
So when I see how people can just turn on the thing and then drop a bottle and then they got millions of views or make something explode and then and it's funny to other people, but you're not building that work,
Mm-hmm.
that catalog of jokes and doing the grind, going to all the clubs. But I got to tell you something. That's why even though sometimes I miss comedy, when I look at some of the other comedians at the work they put in, it's like I respectfully bowed out
Yeah,
because I'm saying, oh, I can't do this because I got my day job. My daughter was 3 years old at the time, 5 years old, and I'm not home on the weekends. But even though it's good to spend time, of course, with your family, but sometimes you got to make sacrifices for what you want, right?
yes,
But
yes.
I seen that, and I'll drop names because some of the comedians that inspired me, and I dropped their names on my first podcast. I seen their work they put in, and I seen what they're doing now. So I
Yeah,
always pay respect to John Paul,
yeah,
Ron Jossel,
yeah,
Gilson Lubin,
yeah.
even when I started before Jay Martin, but Jay Martin and Tricks, I see
Yeah,
the work that
yeah.
they constantly put in, and I see what I was doing. So I respectfully bow out, but I know what
Um,
you mean.
I tell you, you want to hear a story about how myself, John Paul, and this kid Alan Maskell almost died in Trinidad?
What?
Yeah, we almost drowned.
What happened?
So we were in Trinidad for Carnival. This is PHAT TV days. I was out there shooting for like 10 days. And it was the last day. So we're on the beach and we smoking, we drinking, having a good time. We go out into the ocean and we splashing around, having a good time. Da, 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 da. Now, for those who don't know about the ocean's no joke. That beast will suck you up in a second. So you know how the current go, how the waves go. Wave come in, wave goes out.
Mm.
So when you standing out there and like, you know what I mean? Here's the beach, here's a little bit of you stand out in the middle, you let the wave come in and hit you in your back. It's fun.
Mm.
So it was doing that to all three of us, but it was also pulling us a little bit further. So we'd be here, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. To one point, we're just like, yo, the beach is over there.
Jeez.
So we're fight, and the wave is still pulling us back. Eldon's trying to grab John Paul. John Paul's trying to push me, and we're fighting and we're trying and we can't do it. I swear to God. I was like, fuck, man. I can't believe I'm going out like this. That's the last thing I remember saying. And then lifeguard came and pulled us, got us all.
Oh my gosh. That's a
Yep.
yo. It's so
Ask
fun.
John Paul if he remembers that.
Yo, I'm a post.
He could probably be like, I was da and I was trying to help them, and they were da. But yo, three of us would have died in Trinidad.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. That would have
Mm.
changed everything. Wow. It's so weird how just a conversation can trigger a memory like that.
Well, like you said, me, I remember like there's a lot of things. I'm very nostalgic.
Mm.
I could tell you I could tell you the girl gave my first kiss in grade 1. Like I'm
Yeah.
just that dude. You
Yeah.
know?
Phew.
So
Yo, this is amazing. I thought this wouldn't be long, but because it's the chemistry, man. You know who I went this long with? I went. I had long podcasts with a couple people, couple guys from the States, but my cousin, right?
Mhm.
Steve Bino, we were just, and he was telling about the comic world and everything. And you actually met a comic, his name, Neil Adams, right? I seen a picture with you and he passed away, rest in peace.
Oh
But
man.
quickly tell me about that.
So there's another documentary that I'm working on. I can't really pull the whole thing out together, but it has to do with comic books. And I always run into Neil Adams. Now, for those who don't know who Neil Adams are, if you know anything about comic books, this is a famous comic book where Superman is fighting. It's Superman versus Muhammad Ali. There's a
Mm,
big book. Look it up. Just go Superman Muhammad Ali. You'll see that cover.
mm,
He drew that cover and he worked on that book. He also worked on Green Lantern, this book called Green Lantern and Green Arrow, and it was a very pivotal book because it talked about racism in there.
mm,
And he's the one who also created John Stewart. John Stewart is the Black Green Lantern.
mm,
When he went to DC Comics about his Green Lantern, they were just like, yo, why is his nose look like that? Because back in the days, what they would used to do was they would just have their white figure that they looked, how they drew, and just colored them brown. So
mm.
it'd be straight. They look like a white boy, but it looked like, but he just called, you know what I mean? And he was the first person to be like, yo, this is how Black people look. I'm drawing them how they look.
Mm.
They didn't like that, but they ended up doing it and became the most popular Green Lantern. People more know John Stewart than they know. This generation knows more John Stewart than they know Hal Jordan. So I'm always at the conventions and I'd be with my camera and I'd be like, tell me about that story. He goes, Kwame, come to the studio and sit down with me and do this interview.
Yeah.
Kwame, New York, back. Kwame, just come to the studio. I'm like, yeah, okay, Neil, okay. He passes away. I was like, I wanted to throw something. I was so mad because like I'll never get that opportunity again, and that's too bad. He was a giant in the comic book world, for especially when it comes to Black characters. Neil Adams was the guy.
Mm. How did you find out of his passing?
Just IG, like just going on the internet, and
Mm.
I was just like, when I talked to some of my producer partners, I was so mad. I was so mad. You know what I mean? Because, and I was more mad at myself because even though you're waiting for projects to go, you don't wait for nobody. I could have easily just said, let me take my camera. I'm going to go to the studio and I'm just going to get it on tape and I'm just going to moss it.
Mm.
Same with Stan Lee
Mm.
on
Mm.
that, like, you know what I mean? And I just never did it. And then, so yeah.
Oh man. But thanks for sharing that because I seen the picture with you and him, man.
Mm-hmm.
The last person I'm going to talk about, and then I want you to talk about, just summarize your time at 93.5, how that experience. But I'm gonna drop a name here, man,
Yeah.
because you were in the know, and we're talking about hip hop artists that we grew up with, and then everybody came along. I don't know if you were in um that realm when 50 came in, and I saw you with the game though. I saw a picture of you with the game. But I want to ask you,
50 gave me
uh,
one of the illest drops too. I got one of the illest drops from 50.
really?
Yeah, man. Yeah. I begged him. I was on the phone with him. I was just like, Fifth, just cool out, man. Like I was like, I don't want to hear you get shot and get killed, man. He's like, oh, thanks, big homie. And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, okay. And then he gave me the illest drop.
Mhm. Wait, did you interview Fib?
Yeah, yeah. When I was
Wait,
on, yeah. Go ahead.
no, before I ask this question about this artist,
Uh-huh.
big artist in Canada, I wanna ask you the interview with Fifth, how it was, but who was your most memorable interview that just hit you in the top of your head? But tell me about 50 first.
50 was a cool interview. That was probably close to one of my last interviews on radio in Canada because right after that, Kiss 92 um, switched to Jack FM,
Mm,
and 50 was just he was coming to Canada for the first time to do a show. and so we were just teeing up the album, doing all that. But it was a good interview with him, obviously getting to talk about his history and his life and stuff like that. So that I really liked that interview. But most memorable, it's so hard. I don't know. I mean, God, I interviewed so many people, and Khalees was a really good interview because it felt very like we were friends,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, an interesting interview was with Jerry Heller when I was in Edmonton. Jerry
Okay.
Heller is the manager of NWA.
Yes. Yes.
So talking to him about Ice Cube and Easy E and all those guys, that was, he signed his book to me. Like I got his book, autographed his book, and we sat down, we chopped it up, and like just hearing that stuff is like it's kind of chilling, you know what I mean? That's just like, because you hear all these rumors and stuff like that, but that was a serious time for those guys. So that was a really, really cool interview. But yeah, I can't really say one just blew my mind and stood out to me, but
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But it's crazy how you interview some people and they just starting out, you know what I mean? And then we see where they are today.
that's
It's
why I'm
just
so glad. I'm glad I've always had that ability to get with people when they first started, because after they blow up, then it's that's easy.
yeah.
But when they first start, you can kind of you could tell who's going to be what and who, you know what I mean? Like there's some really, I remember I was in another BT Awards, and I was doing street interviews going into like this party, and I was talking to, meeting Malcolm Jamal Warner.
Saw the picture.
To me, I had a long distance connect with him, because when Cosby Show was on, I felt like we were in the same high school, because everything he was dealing with, I was dealing with at the same time. And I really liked interviewing him. And then The Wire was out around that time, and I can't remember who I was interviewing. Was interviewing somebody, and I can't remember the character's name, but he was the older gentleman, the older detective, the black detective.
That passed away?
No, not him. That
Oh.
was chief. That was
Oh,
that was
okay.
that was the chief.
Yeah.
The detective. Freeman, Detective Freeman. He was the one with the bow legs. Freeman, I saw him, and I'm talking to some celebrity, and I see him, and I know he's coming, and he'll pass me because I'm interviewing. I was like, I wanted to be like, yo, hurry up. Because I looked at him, I said, I asked a question this person's telling me. I'm looking up there, I go, oh, and this guy's still talking. I'm just like, yeah, hurry up, man. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, thanks. I don't remember who it was, but I was just like, yo, Freeman comes, and I'm just like, oh my God. And we talked about The Wire. I was like blown away. I remember in that same lineup, Soulja Boy was there, and he must have smoked a blunt or did something, but his breath was just rock. I was like, damn, son. Like,
I saw the picture of you with Soulja Boy.
Messing up my belly. It was like that type of breath, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mind you, Method Man clowned me one time. He's like, you got bad breath. But he was just like an asshole to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, yo, you're mean. You know, like this guy. But Method Man is the one person that made me, he's the first celebrity to make me separate the art from the person. Because he was an asshole to me. He was just an asshole to me. I was like, yo, I don't like you. But I always thought you were like, it's Method Man.
Yeah.
But as a person, I was like, I don't even want to be around this guy. You know what I mean?
I was gonna ask you that too. Like, there's things that we see on TV or in the interview are some people different.
Night and day.
Wow.
Night and day. Like, it's interesting because, they really have to just put it on. And, that's why it's like, you think of all the people who've gotten themselves in trouble, and you ask yourself, can you listen to an R. Kelly record now? Is R. Kelly still a great artist? Is he a great artist or not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How hard is that to answer? Like if you take away what he's done,
Mm,
or just say the music,
mm.
one opinion. But the person, oh my God, that guy can go to hell. You know what I mean? So
Did he stop by anything? Studio?
never,
Yeah.
I've never met R. Kelly.
Mm, mm,
Never met R. Kelly.
mm. Okay. Wow, just drop after drop. But now this person, last question,
Yeah,
because you just hit me with something because I seen a picture with you and some wrestlers too. So I want to ask about that. But
oh, I got a
this
good one.
person, there's a show that we used to watch back in the days, right?
Mhm.
It's about junior high school. It's called Degrassi Junior High. I loved that show as a kid, right? But then when I got older, I seen they did another Degrassi Junior High, and there was this light-skinned character on there.
Mhm.
And his name is Drake.
Aubrey.
But yes, Aubrey. Now, I don't know what point in your career that Drake came in, because now I'm messed up with years. But
Yeah.
did you know about Drake at the
Mm.
time?
I was in Alberta.
Mm.
My friends, like my friend King Rain, he rest in peace, Socrates, all those guys. I was out of Toronto when he was coming, when he was doing his thing and hitting the studios. And around that time, I was really kind of just jaded in that industry.
Oh,
So I only met him once. I met him through a friend of mine, Adrian X, who is a guitar player, amazing guitar player who played in Drake's first tour band. And when he came to Edmonton, me and him were kicking it. He's like, "Yo, I'm out here with Drake and da 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 da." Like, so we met up, and then it was at the after party, and Drake was there, and I was just like, "Hey, what's up? I'm from Toronto too, and da 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 da." But we it's 6 degrees of separation, yes, but
mm.
never chopped it up with him. But really happy that he's been able to do what he's done, and he's unapologetically able to represent Toronto to the fullest. It makes me sad that none of the people that I grew up with were able to break through like he did, and I knew a lot of them that were so talented.
Mm.
And that's what just tells you it's time and place, man. Because Socrates, in my opinion, was that guy before that guy.
Yeah.
But King Rain, same thing. But it's just and I have to sometimes I'll run into some people and I'm just like, man, but God don't make mistakes, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to know if you knew or were in the know at that time when he came up and if you expected him to be who he is today, coming from
I was
Toronto.
I was around when I worked at Wonderland. I worked with this Southeast Asian kid whose best friend also, like, I'd go to his house and his best friend would DJ with him, and he'd always call me Kwame and do all these jokes, and I'd just be like, "Yo, this guy is irritating as hell." Yeah,
Mm.
he's funny, but he's irritating as hell. He
Yeah.
ends up I go out to Alberta, and people are like, "Oh my God, this guy Russell Peters." I'm like, "Russell Peters?"
Mm.
I'm like, "I know Russell Peters. That's my from Brett." He's like, and he blew up like that person. You know what I mean? Like I saw that. I didn't
Mm.
expect him. I didn't expect Russell to be where he was at. But again, really, really happy for them. And whenever I see him, I tread lightly because he just likes to clown on people. So
Yeah, I know about that, but tell me something. Since you got on that, I seen a picture with you and Russell, of course. You and one of my other mentors for the Nubian show that I used to do, Kenny Robinson. But I seen a picture with you and him. Was there a connect in Toronto with all the different you have your comedians, you have your actors. I know Mark Taylor.
yeah,
Was there a connect with everyone, like a
yeah.
little
Because
circle?
I think what it is like I equate that to being in high school.
Mm,
You all went to the same school. There's the rappers, there's the actors, there's the comedians, there's the radio people, there's
mm,
the artists. Like, it was just like that. So there'd be certain times when everybody would, you buck together at certain parties and stuff like that, but you went off in your certain directions, you know what I mean? And I used to host a comedy show every other Sunday at the Bamboo. That
Oh.
was really cool. And sometimes Russell would come in and he might have done a couple of like 5 minutes here and there and stuff like that. But
Mm.
and Kenny was dope. But this is, Nubian show was going on at the end of every month.
Yeah, the Sunday, yeah.
So we used to try and make sure that, we, not that we're trying to compete with them, but we was trying to do some different flavor. That was a lot of fun. That's another craft I wish I sat and really worked on, because there's just something about, there's something about being on stage and grabbing the mic and making people laugh. That's almost,
It's the best feeling. The best
yeah,
feeling.
I mean, that's a different flex than singing a song, or you know what I mean, to me. But
Mm.
I always like that stand-up world. But yeah,
Yeah. It's tough though to stay. The grind is crazy, you know what I mean?
gotta be that guy.
Mm.
You gotta be willing.
All right. Now I want to move before we move to your documentary, Soul on Ice. Just tell me a little bit about that wrestling world. Like, how did you meet these? I swear I saw a picture with rest in peace. Owen Hart. Were you
Yeah,
sitting with
oh,
Owen?
yeah.
Rest in peace, Owen Hart. What was that like? Like, how did you meet?
So
Ric Flair.
the wrestling thing is like, I remember telling Ric Flair this. I'm like, when you think back to your childhood, your earliest memories, one of my earliest television memory is Ric Flair and Andre the Giant and those guys. And I've always been a wrestling head, which most first generation West Indians were, because of their parents and
Mhm.
grandparents always loved watching wrestling.
Yeah.
And I knew how to do a figure four when I was like in grade 4, grade 5. I could put you in a figure four and really jack you up. I could put you in a Cobra Clutch, and we used to put people in the sleeper and knock them out. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm.
My brother was even a bigger wrestling head, but always loved wrestling. So glad that I was able to watch all those great wrestlers. And then when I was doing PHAT TV, I sparked up a relationship with a guy named Carl DeMarco, who was the president of WWF Canada.
Ooh.
And so I met him, and he used to, like, when I was using PHAT TV, I used to just be like, hey, we got this show and we want to interview wrestlers and stuff like that. But we weren't ready to interview no wrestlers. Like, yo, totally. And he would give me passes, and then backstage passes, and then he would let me go backstage and interview. And I had a little recorder, and I'd interview wrestlers, and I'd be able to go ringside and take pictures. I got a picture of literally me right here, Stone Cold Steve Austin giving the finger salute, taking a picture of him like that. I put it on Twitter years ago, and he actually wrote back. He said, "Oh snap, old school." And I had a really cool picture of the Undertaker that I gave him. Like, he was giving Stone Cold a tombstone, and I gave him that picture. But I used to go backstage and do these little interviews with them, and I would never do anything with it. I had to find them. I have them all on a cassette tape somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I sat down this one time, and the Godwins were there. Remember the Godwins? They were like country bunkers. And one thing people got to know about wrestlers, which you'll see in a lot of documentaries, there's a lot of them are very not nice people. They're not nice.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Back then, and I can understand, because they really grinded. And I just remember being backstage, and they were all just assholes to me. It was so bad. It was so bad. And then last person coming is Owen Hart. And I go, hey man, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You know what I mean? Like don't, you know what I mean? Like, they're told to do it.
Yeah.
But they're gonna make you know, like, I don't want to be here in front of you.
Wow.
So I said to him, I said, Owen, I said, listen, man, if you don't want to do this, because no, let's sit down, man. How's it going? What's your name? And da-da-da. And oh yeah, my family and this, and I've been wrestling and I love it, and this, about the nicest guy ever. Like, when I say any interview you hear someone say Owen Hart was just the best person to be around, for that 10, 15 minutes I was around him, I fell in love with that guy. He made my whole day. Like, you just imagine You watch the show that you love, and it's great. You go backstage to interview these people that you idolize, and it's bad.
Mm.
So now you're jaded again, and then this guy comes in and he brings you right back.
Right back.
Back to what I was saying to you about Method Man.
Yeah.
Because of what you see on TV or listen doesn't mean they're going to be nice people.
Mm.
He was a nice person, so that's why I cried when he died. I was at home watching that show and they announced he died, and it broke my freaking heart because I'm like, all I could think about was like all those assholes I met. That's the one that they take away. You know what I mean? That's the one.
Yeah.
So he was great. Ric Flair was great to meet. I met him on a couple occasions. It was really nice to meet Ric Flair because he was my favorite wrestler as a kid. You know, I remember he autographed a picture. Like when I went to meet him, it was like when WrestleMania was here in Toronto.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting him, and I went back and I had all these old wrestling books that my brother used to collect.
Mm.
And I remember having him on, I put down, and all the wrestlers were like, holy shit, where'd you get that? Da, 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 da. And there's one when Ric Flair won his first title and he signed it for me. So I still have that to this day, but he was cool to meet. And then I met him again in Tampa Bay, Tampa,
Mm.
an outside bar, just hitting on the bartender. Like Flair is Flair.
Yeah.
Old, but he was just like, hey girl, da, da, da. Man, Rick, you look like you're gonna fall apart. He was good to meet. I never met The Rock. I met Stone Cold in passing. He was grumpy, but I had John Cena on my. I interviewed John Cena, the Hardy Boys. I spent a whole day with Trish Stratus.
Oh, my wife was telling me about something back in the day where she was modeling with one of her friends. So Trish is from Toronto, right?
She was that's how she got discovered. So if you went to the government
Mm.
and you're coming back, going home, you jump on the highway to go back to Scarborough, there used to be this huge billboard, and it was her and a girl.
Yeah.
Someone saw that and blah, she was a fitness model. But I spent the day with her. I spent the day with Chris Benoit.
Oh no! Wow.
When I say I hung out a whole day with him, and
Mm.
again, I don't really say much. I don't comment because what he did was really bad.
Yeah.
I'd be lying to you if I didn't say he was one of the nicest guys to be around.
Wow. Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So I was really sad about that story too, because he was another guy that was cool. Like them guys, I mean, they're grumpy people.
Yeah.
But I hung out with him and Edge for like a whole day.
Wow.
Trish Stratus for like a whole day. I was messing around with Trish. Like Trish is like, you see Trish, you're like, ooh, shorty. You're like,
Yeah.
But when you hang out with her, she's like the homie. She's like the homie. She's so cool like that. And I remember I was messing around with her. I tried to put her in like a arm lock,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a chop against my chop on my chest, full out chop.
Yeah.
I swear to God, it came to my chest, man. I was like, yo, I was like, all right, playtime's over, man. Stop. Like, you know what I mean? All right, stop.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, oh, you want to play? Oh, let's play. I'm like, okay. Yeah, relax.
Yo, some of the female wrestlers like China back in the days, man. China was jacked up, man. Oh man. But yo, thanks for
I got to meet a lot of Xavier Woods and like new school guys and like hanging out with him and Kofi Kingston and this Stu Hockey and stuff like that. Those guys were really cool to be around too. So
yo, thanks for sharing that too. And you know what's crazy? I did a wrestling podcast, right, with my boy Jimmy Z. He's a former police officer. He's on my podcast twice. And when I was gonna do it, we were gonna do it with these two guys from the States and have like two Canadian guys, two American guys, all irrelevant podcasts in the States and Florida. My man DC and Cortez. But I was talking to Greg Simon. You remember Greg Simon, right? You know, yeah. So Greg was talking about how he met Andre the Giant one time when they came here. So I want to know, did you ever see Andre in this encounter in person, or was he passed away at the time?
I never met or was around Andre. I mean, I used to go watch wrestling at Maple Leaf Gardens. I'll blow your mind. You know which wrestler went to Victoria Park and Donview?
No, I already know. I already know.
Roddy Piper, baby.
Yeah. Rest in
God,
peace.
you know, there's a picture of him
In Vic Park.
yeah, when he's the wrestling
Oh,
wrestling.
were you gonna say a different school?
No, Vic Park, Vic Park. He was at
Yeah.
the wrestling. He was in the yeah. That shit
Yeah.
was. I found that out. I was like, anything's possible.
Yeah. I remember when I found that out, I was like, first of all, I didn't even know how many wrestlers were Canadian. Like that one tripped me out. You know what I mean? That one
Yeah,
tripped me out, man.
yeah.
The Hart family. I'm glad you said that about Owen because I always like Bret Hart, Owen Hart,
Yeah,
the Hart
I met him
family.
too. I met
Yeah.
Brett. I met Brett too. He was a
Mhm.
nice guy. My dad lost. I had a nice picture with him. My dad lost the picture. But yeah, Roddy Piper he got kicked out because he pulled a knife on a teacher.
Mm.
Yeah.
Heard about that. Wow.
Cabbagetown. He spent a lot of time out there too.
Yeah. When he passed, that one hurt me too, man. Mm. All right. Great. This is great stories you're sharing. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is your documentary,
Uh-huh.
Soul on Night. So I believe it's about past, present, future of the black men in the NHL. But if I'm wrong, correct me on that. I want to know the process and what even sparked your mind to do something like this. And
Mhm.
yeah, go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah. So Soul on Ice Past, Present, and Future is about the history and contributions of black athletes in the game of hockey. The reason why I made that film, I always loved hockey, always loved film. I was in radio at that time when I came up with the idea in like 2005, um, working in Edmonton, Alberta. Because when I went to Edmonton, hockey is huge, and I befriended a bunch of hockey players there. One being George Larocque, who's like one of the toughest enforcers in NHL history, black guy.
Mm.
And I remember they were in the playoffs, they were doing great, and I just remember being in at this bar with them, and they shut down the bars. It's just everybody's this hype. And I just remember all these white boys and this one black guy there. And I always thought, like, man, I wonder what that's like for you. You know what I mean? Because you gotta roll, you know what I mean? Like you gotta roll with them.
Mm.
It's not like they're rolling with you to the clubs. They roll, unless they're into it.
Mm.
So I remember being back at my house and I'd get on the internet and I would just Google black hockey players and I would just all this information would pop up. And then I learned about the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes, which was in and around 1895 to 1930. And I was like, what? There was a hot. I'm like, that's like the Negro Baseball League. And I couldn't believe that nobody ever talked about it. And I would know. At that point in my life, I would know if somebody did something on it because I always watched hockey. I watched it during Black History Month. I always watched hockey. I never heard them talk not once about that. And I said, that's crazy. So I always thought that would make a great documentary. So I would just print out all this information and I'd store it away in a box. So that was around 2005. So fast forward to around 2011, I'm just getting burnt out of radio. I'm not getting I got a bad attitude towards radio. Radio's got a bad attitude towards me. Then my mom gets sick. I go back home. A couple of days later, my mom passes away. And I remember when we were at the hospital, she was telling me, she was, just being concerned, like, hey man, so what is it like the radio thing? Is that what you're gonna do? Like, what do you want? And I was just telling her my ideas. I was like, I got this idea about blacks and hockey and a documentary. And she just kind of like it was like the first time she ever was like, go do it. Like, you gotta go do it. You know what I mean? And so that gave me the courage to say, okay, I gotta make this happen. I don't know how, but I gotta. So then I got fired from this last radio job. And that was okay, your back is against the wall. And it's funny how things work because I feel like God, Allah, the universe, whatever you want to call it, if you are 100% honest, God will make it happen for you. So I just remember, I always pray every night. I pray, and I remember praying and saying, I got to do this. And this is all that's in my head. This documentary, and my energy was like on that, and it was like God said, "All right, you want to do it? It's gonna be hard, but if you want to do it, let's go. I'll give you the tools, but it ain't gonna be easy." So I'm on I unemployment insurance. I'm in Alberta, got no revenue coming in, nothing. And so I'm like, okay, let me just get one more little radio job and while I'm doing that, I'll work on this. One application, nope. This one, nope. This one, nope. Nobody would hire me. So I'm like, oh shit. But I'm still hustling. I'm working. And I decide now that I can't afford to. I own my own condo. I had to sell that. So I said, let me just sell this, take that money, and start working on this. Connected with this guy, Michael P. Douglas from Toronto, old friend. And we just started grinding. And that was my mind every day for 3 years straight. And when I say I had no money, I had no money. Any little money I had to put it towards that. I was making T-shirts and I would sell those, and I would try the GoFundMe's, and you know, it was one of the hardest, most satisfying processes I've ever gone through, especially because it was film. And I remember towards the end, this kid, Chester Sitt, came on and was helping to produce. He helped us get this grant from TELUS Optics. Now, the beauty was he lived in Alberta still, and I still had an Alberta address.
Mm-hmm.
So TELUS was giving grants to people from the West Coast. So we were able to get like 60 grand. And that was enough for me to now go and edit the film. Because for last 2.5 years, all I was doing was connects and interviewing Herb Carnegie, Anson Carter, Trevor Daly, this guy, that guy, Tony McKegney. I'm getting all these great interviews. I'm shooting all these kids in the rink. I've got stuff. I'm just, now it's like, okay, well, how much more people are you going to interview? You got to start putting a story together. So once we got that 60 grand, I was like, okay, now I can go and edit. I got an editor, and I just remember sitting with this editor every day. And I was like, man, when this is done, man, I want to go to film school. He's like, you ain't got to go to film school. You just spent 3 years in film school learning how to make a film. And I had the hands-on. It was so hard. Like the hustle was like, I'd go to New York. I went to New York with Val James, who was the first Black American to play in the NHL. And he actually played for the Leafs for a little bit. I remember going to New York. He was on his book tour, and I was shooting some stuff with him. And I knew Willie O'Ree would be there, and I couldn't get in touch with Willie O'Ree. So I went there. I just kind of would just bum rush spots and just be there. And they're like, "Oh, you want to do it? Willie's going to be at the Willie O'Ree All-Star Weekend in Philadelphia. He's going to be there tomorrow." I'm like, all weekend. I'm like, I need this. I flew back to Toronto, booked a flight, go to Philadelphia, like go right back to New York, rent a car, drive to Philly, stay in the I stayed in, like, man, when I say I stayed in some grimy hotel, because I had to put my money towards. I couldn't be like, oh, I'm staying the whoop. I'd be in LA, and man, like, I had to lock my door, boy. I'm like, yo, I know where I'm at. You know what I mean? I'm not in some, and I just did what I had to do, and then just do the blessings, man. Finished it and put it out in 2015, and Gary Bettman heard about it, asked me to see it, sent it to him, and that's when the ball started rolling, man. Like, you know, and like I said, like when you on a path, God's gonna make it. It may hurt, but
Mhm.
He's gonna get you to the end.
So I just wanted to ask something before you continue, because I seen that date, 2016. So I don't know if that date is a staple that meant something. So you can continue after. But you mentioned the higher power. Do you believe, because I really believe this. So when you started this trajectory, this path, things started happening. So you're saying you had this opportunity. You can't turn it. You have to go and get it. You have to
Gotta
go
go.
fly here and meet with this person. And things just start coming. I don't believe that's by chance. I
No,
believe
not
someone's
enough.
looking out for you. So speak on that before you talk about
Yeah,
Gary Bettman seeing the product.
I just believe that it was in my destiny. It was already written that I would do this thing that was going to change the conversation of hockey forever. You know, I'm not here to try to big up myself or anything. I just try. I like to talk in just facts for certain things. If you look at hockey before 2015, 2016, nobody was talking in depth about blacks in hockey or minorities in hockey. No, I don't care what anybody says. I'll challenge anybody. I'll be like, you tell me when they were doing celebrations and all this. You tell me when. You tell me when. Well, I'll tell you that I know that when I got in there and I started and I came with the idea, I was like, yo, let me take, when I was in the NHL, I was like, listen, let me take my film and let me go to all these different places so we could talk. It started rolling and things started happening. I was meeting people, and then Kim Davis comes on board, and she's now the highest ranking black woman in the NHL. Now she's just like, we're gonna amplify things. I called her and we got a good relationship, and then it started moving. But it was in my cards to do that, and nothing was going to allow me to derail myself, but nothing was also going to stop me from doing it. You know what I mean? So, like for example, like if you watch the film, PK Subban is not in the film, and if you're doing a film about blacks in hockey, there's certain people that should be in that film, but for some reason he just wouldn't do the film. But his
Mm.
father's in it, his brothers are in it, his mom's in it, he's not in it. You know, Jerome McGillna is not in it, but I was still able to tell a story that wasn't being negative towards the game of hockey when it comes to the treatment of blacks in the game. I was able to make a film that was encouraging, telling the hockey fan base that blacks have always played this game of hockey. Blacks have always contributed to this game of hockey, and to any young black family or any young black kid who wants to play the game, yo, go ahead. It's the greatest game out there. And it's the one game it's got the most opportunity to grow because of it being so predominantly white. Like we could really do something great. It just takes people wanting to get in. And so that's probably, besides, having kids, that's one of the greatest things I've ever created in my life, you know.
Yeah, I see you all over the internet when I Googled that, man. That's proud of you, man. Um, you had a lot of clips in the chamber, and by me saying that, what I mean is when I was younger, I didn't watch hockey.
Mm.
So you grew up with hockey. We all played street hockey. I don't know if you played ice hockey, but we all played street
Oh,
hockey. But you're okay.
hockey,
So
I played for Arrows. So it would be at Fenside Arena
mm,
Saturday mornings,
yeah.
you know.
So there you go. That's what I mean by you had the clips and you knew the NHL players, so you know the history. And you probably knew before that there was black players. But me
I
just
didn't. When I was a kid, I didn't. That's why I made the film, because, you know, you're out there as there was no you just didn't know. I didn't know about Willie O'Ree and Herb Carnegie and Mike Mars, and it's only until I got older you heard. The only black person I ever heard of was Grant Fuhr.
yes,
That was
yes,
the
that's
only
the
black
only
person I
name.
ever heard
Yeah.
of. You know what I mean? And again, that's why I made this film, because I didn't want the younger kids like me to think that there was no black kids or black people that played the game of hockey.
Mhm. But yeah, this is why you were the right person to do this documentary because of what you knew, the collection of data. It must have been a
Studying the
lot of
craft.
research,
Studying the craft.
studying the craft, yes. And then you brought that about. That's amazing. So when did it, where can I find the doc? Because I've never seen it
I'll send
personally.
it to you. I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Because like I had a distributor. It was out on like all the platforms for a while, and I had a contract with my distributor for like 5 years. It ended up being with me for like 6, 7 years because it just kept rolling, and people just kept wanting to buy it and stuff like that, or different networks would want to jump on it and stuff like that. So when they were kind of my contracts up, I was like, nah, take it down.
Mm,
Like make it something that if you want to see, you got to come to me and you got to find it, and I get it to you. You know,
mm.
so yeah. So I'll definitely send it to you, and if anybody wants to see it, they gotta just they gotta find me and
Yeah.
talk to me, and I feel you're humble enough about it, and you really want it, I'll send it to you. It's not a problem.
Perfect. Perfect. I thought I heard something about you bumping into a female hockey player and they were like, "What about us?"
Yeah,
Is there anything that you're working on that you could talk about?
yeah. I was in Chicago. We had a screening of Soul on Ice. Went great, great interview, great Q&A after. And then this little girl was just like, "Yo, where's all the black girls?" And it, it was one of those things that I skated around because I wanted to do when I did Soul on Ice. I wanted to talk about Angela James, who is one of the first females inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. She's from Flemo, and she's from Flemo when Flemo was grimy. She's
Mm,
OG, black girl from Flemo. And I never got to put her story in that. And so when this little girl said that to me, I was like, all right, I'm like, I have to do something. And the timing wasn't right. And I completed a film. You can see it on YouTube right now.
mm.
If you look up Ice Queens,
Yeah.
that was my latest film. That was the last film I did that was dedicated to black girls and women in the game of hockey.
Yeah. I thought I heard something about that. Nice. Can't forget
Mm-hmm.
about them. Okay. Before I do the charity balloons here, you're gonna answer the real talk question. But tell me some of the charitable work that you've been doing throughout the years as well.
Yeah, so the main thing that I'm focused on right now is I started a foundation called the Soul on Ice Foundation. I'm brand new to it. I don't even have a spot for people to donate or anything like that. Um, but it's a very humble, small little thing that I'm working on because, my son is 6 and he plays hockey, and I look at the whole hockey aspect, and a lot of kids go out there and they're one of 30 or one of 20 kids on the ice and they're skating. And I always found like there was really no rhyme or reason to like I could see my kid doing something wrong. Then the coaches would be like, all right, little buddy. Some places you're really specific to the training, but a lot of places, like if you really, really want your kid to, you got to be in small groups. So I thought of starting a foundation that was dedicated to taking a small group of kids who knew each other in hockey and helping them get specific training once a week on the ice while teaching them about certain pillars off the ice, making them better people off the ice. So the first pillar that I'm working on is safety and wellness. So basically what happens, I got a small group of kids that like my son is a part of, and once a week they get this training. Wednesdays, we're going to it tonight. They go and train for an hour and a half on the ice, get their hockey skills on. But throughout this process, I'm teaching them about safety. So, for example, I connected with a buddy of mine named Sean Sporton, who's a chairman at Crime Stoppers and is also a bigwig at Garter Security. They sponsored this little group, and they are going to teach them about dealing with police. If you're ever in trouble, this is who, police are here to help you. Be careful of cyber bullies. Be careful of that, and also work with the parents and talk to them about safety for their children and what to do if their kids in trouble, or how to talk to their kids about being safe. And then I got Bauer equipment involved, and they taught the kids about your proper equipment. Make sure your shin pads fit. Talk to the parents about proper helmets, and so they laced them from head to toe. So I'm just trying to, work with small groups. The next pillar that I want to work is financial literacy. So I want to take a bunch of teenagers, small group, get them the on ice training, but off ice, we're going to teach them about saving money. Remember, we were talking about that the other day, but talking them about financial literacy to help them be better people off the ice. So
amazing work. Giving back. Always got to give back.
Yeah.
All right. The last thing we're gonna do, one of the last things is you're gonna answer the real talk with Star Scorpio question. So what do you want me to read out? Blue Jays or the Raptors?
Let's go with Raptors.
Right.
That's typical. I don't know why I did that, but
yeah,
that's typical of women's basketball, right?
All right. What is one of the most memorable moments of your life?
Most memorable moments of my life. Man, that is so hard, because I guess, you know what? I think I'll always remember the look my son gave me when he was born. Because when he was born, they took him from his mom and he was unresponsive. Like, they didn't say to me, this is the first time, so I don't know the real procedure, but I know at some point they're going to say, cut the tube, cut the cord or whatever.
Yeah.
And they did not do that. They just took the kid and they're like, rushing. I'm just like, and they were pushing his chest and like, you know what I mean? Like he wasn't breathing or something like that. So I was kind of like, yo, what's going on? And no one said anything. Just pushed me out of the way. And then finally coughed up. And then I just remember his little eyes is opening. And like, I know I'm the first person he looked at. And that, you know what I mean? That was kind of like, that was very interesting. And I'll always cherish that. And I tell him, like, when I put him in bed, I'm like, yo, the first person you looked at is me. I'm the first person, and that's something that I'll always, hold, because that's my guy,
Yeah. Wow. That's a touching story. I added this question in. This is my 9th season, as you know. I didn't do this in the first season, I don't think. I think I started second season. And I just like hearing the stories, because the other question is, what was the most challenging thing that you overcome in your life? But I like to hear this one.
The most challenging thing was that process of sawing ice, because there were so many moments where it was like, oh, you want to quit? You want to quit? You can quit. You can stop. Yeah, no, yeah, so-and-so is not calling you back. You ain't got no money. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like someone said, well, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I'm going to do something about it. So that's what it was for me.
All right. This has been great. This is a 2-part. Season 9, episode 1 is amazing. I'm going to find out how to chop this up.
You got to do 2 parts when you go back to a new season. The first episode always got to be a 2-parter, so it makes people want to come back for the other ones. So
there you go.
I'm honored for being, but I apologize to the listeners. I hope I wasn't rambling. I hope that everything I said was something that you'd want to just hear and sit, because I know there's some podcasts that go on for hours and you're just like, holy shit, man, I don't want to listen to that.
No, I'm gonna chop this up, because you told stories about so many different things. I'm gonna put out in consumable, and then I'm gonna short content, and then I'm gonna put out the whole thing in part 1, part 2. But this is lovely, man. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, bro.
Before I get into the balloon pop to see who I donate to, I used to ask some people this question, a lot of people, I should say. Out of 80 something people, I probably asked 50 people. And I want to ask you because of your experiences. Some people, and this is for young people, some people want to give up on their dreams and sometimes people, some people want to self cancel, if you know what I'm talking about. But I want to know if you have any advice for anyone listening to this podcast who's about to give up on their dream.
You have a choice. That's it. You can give up or you can carry on. It's your choice. But just remember, once you make that choice, if it's a strong choice, you reap the rewards and you deserve it, and it's yours, and you can bask in it, you can gloat on it because you made the choice to do it and see it through, and you made it. But if you choose to give up, that's on you. That's not on nobody else. That's on you. So my advice is always remember you have a choice. It's your choice, no one else's. You decide your fate. You really do. And nobody can wrong you for it. Just because you quit doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means that, you just didn't have that thing. I used to beat myself up all the time about not having an opportunity to be an actor. But if I did that, would I be here right now and doing what I'm doing? So, but just always, my biggest advice to people is always remember you have a choice. I tell that to my son all the time. I said, you got a choice. You could be rude to me and feel the wrath, or you could be nice to me and we good, and you get your little treats and your candies. And you could go work hard and get rewarded by your mom and your dad going, oh my God, you did so great, and let's celebrate by going to McDonald's. Or you could choose not to work hard and you get nothing. It's your choice.
Amazing. And when you say that too, this is how my daughter turned around her life at a young age. Because my daughter was in, the public school, whatever, 10, not doing that well in school, but we had a good talk. And it's the first time I told her I love her. Someone at school, because that was hard for me to say.
Oh,
'Cause my,
really?
yeah, because my parents never said that to me. You just know, said it. My wife always said it to my daughter. And then I remember I was at work. I was a trainer at the company that I'm at now, medical at 17 years. I used to be the trainer for onboarding new CSRs. And we were talking about family. And then I told them two ladies that, and they said, Peter, and I've heard this before, but they like, you're the man in their life and you have to tell her. I remember when I told her, I I was on the couch and it was so hard first time coming out. And I told her that and I cried. And it was such a moment. I think that was the pivotal change. I think she was 13 or something. Fast forward, she's 25 now. She has her psych degree and she's in vet school. She has her dollars in the bank. She has her own car. She has her head on her shoulders and she loves family. But I don't think if I didn't say that, D, I don't know if that was the thing that really changed it. You know what I mean?
So that's, again, going back to what I was saying. You had a choice. You could have chose not to tell you love her. That's your choice. But whatever happens is on you.
Mm.
You chose to make make the strong decisions to say I love. Now you can reap the rewards of where she's at. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's crazy because like my mom used to tell me, the love, our generation, we didn't come from the love. You know what I mean? Because what people don't understand, I think a lot of white people don't understand. Like our first generation, like it was a grind in that.
Mm.
So our parents didn't have the time to be like, oh, sweetie, sweetie. Our parents was like, yo, get the books and go. Oh, can you tell me you love me? Listen, I gotta go. This is my second job. I got no time for all that.
So
So,
true. So true.
so so I always tell I always tell my kids I love them. You know,
Mm.
my son, he'll just be popping up, love you, dada. And I was
Mm.
like, all right, I love you too, bro. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Like he's a love child. He loves to love. You
Yeah,
know,
kids need that, man. I just thought, she knew because I knew my parents, right? You thought, oh, you don't have to say it. And then I seen how my wife said it so easy. And it's so, it didn't come out my mouth. I'm like, oh, she knows. But she didn't know. And when I say that, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
when you hear the words, man,
no,
it's
but you gotta get. Yeah, I feel like for a lot of us from our generation, if we heard our parents say, "I love you" and "I love what you're doing" and "I love, 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 love,"
mm,
you, they
yeah,
would have done. It would have done a lot more for us.
yeah.
That's God's honest truth. I know that if my mom and my dad had said to me at a young age, I know you're a little class clown. I know you're a little wild for the night.
Mhm.
But I love the fact that you love to entertain. So let me ask you something. You want to go to this little acting school? You want to go and do this? I got you.
Mm.
Who knows? Mind you, I'd have been on some cocaine, wild shit.
Mhm.
I'd have been a wild actor.
Yeah.
I'd have been in the Inquirer or something like that.
Back in the days. All
What?
right. Yo, D, this has been lovely. Now I'm going to do the donation. I got to read this out. So for season 9, the charities that I'm donating to is the Fundraiser Warriors. I'll always donate to those little boys.
Okay.
Claws, Kawartha Lakes Animal Wellness Society. And then my boy Kevin Blagrove started this nonprofit called Juku Sports Academy.
Mhm.
Just going to read it out because it's the first time that I'm donating to this charity. So Juku envisions communities that are led by active and empowering youth. They provide various youth-based sports and educational programs, including basketball and other sports. A donation to Juku will go directly towards reducing program registration fees for a youth who requires financial support to participate in their programs. So that's the third one for this season. So by my hands, D, let me know which balloon you want me to pop, and I'll find out who I'm donating to for season 9, episode 1.
I will go with the purple one. It's on its
Right,
own.
right. So Star Scorpio will be donating to. It's not. I usually do this, but you can't see it. Claws, Kawartha Lakes Animal Wellness Society.
Okay.
Amazing. Anything
Okay.
for animals. All
Mm-hmm.
right, D. This has been great. 2-part podcast. Is there anything you want to say to the people before I cut off?
Yeah, man. Keep it moving. Do what you got to do. Live your life. I know in my world, just a little while, we lost a couple of greats. Charles Officer, Toa Beer, some greats in the industry out here, man. It just makes you just be like grateful for your experiences and where you are and what you contribute. And so just contribute something to this world and keep it pushing.
Right. This is Real Talk with Star Scorpio, and we out.